when I worked at the Sniffen's gas station in the summertime, when I was in high school, the Sniffen brothers owned it, Ross and Fred. And every morning they would go to the store, get 2 cases of Oli, bring it back to the tire shop, and they had one of those big wash tubs in there. Put it in there and fill it full of ice. And at the end of the day, by when I got there at 6 o'clock, there was no beer in there. Once in a while there was one or something, and I'd call them and ask them if I could have it.
In about 1972, a truck crashed in front of, on 152 in front of Willie Pino's house, and it was carrying small cans of chocolate pudding, the pop-top pudding, and my dad got 2 pickup loads. The garage was full of those, and I ate them till I couldn't eat pudding anymore, and I've never ate pudding again in my life.
He was driving down, what was it, Sandy Mush that goes from Southtown to almost Las Vegas?
Santa Fe Grade.
Santa Fe Grade. And here's these boxes like this, one here, one up there, one over there. And so he stops and looks at it, they're lawnmowers. So he picks up, I don't know how many of them.
5 or 6, I think.
Yeah. And
like they fell off some truck?
yeah. So, and there's a railhead right there. So he figured they came off the railhead, and so he called the railroad and told them, that they had these things, and they said, keep them. So he had, in that storage trailer, he had them stacked up in
He
there.
didn't have to buy a lawnmower for 20 years.
Yeah, or Philip Racy, he used them too.
Because every time one would screw up, he'd say, throw it away and get one of those other ones.
Yeah.
They were wizard lawnmowers, they were just cheap lawnmowers.
Yeah.
I never heard that story. That's a good one.
We're going from the funeral home to the cemetery and back of his dad's pickup.
Yeah.
Should I tell the whole story or not?
Yeah, tell the whole story.
Yeah.
The night that Dad died, Adrian called me and told me he died. And so I stayed up for a couple hours and thought about him. And I go to sleep and I wake up, or I have this dream that I'm in his pickup in the front seat, and Philip's on one side and Chris is on the other, and I'm sitting in the middle. And as we're driving this pickup, I catch something go by in the rearview mirror. And I look back in the bed of the pickup, and here's Dad flying Superman style. Dashing from side to side of the bed with this huge smile on his face, following the pickup in the bed. So I called I called Adrian the next morning and I said, we're taking him from the funeral home to the cemetery in back of that pickup. And Adrian goes, I don't know if that's legal or not. I said, we're not telling anybody, we're just putting the pickup there, and we come out, instead of putting it in the hearse, we're putting it in there. So we put the casket in the back of his pickup, put the wide load signs on, yellow lights flashing. Philip drove, Chris sat over here, the pallbearers all sat on the rail of the...
I think Mark and Toby sat up there and the Racies
Yeah.
sat up on the sides.
So it's the San Joaquin Valley, February or something, freezing ass cold, foggy day. And these guys are back there. It's only a couple of blocks of the cemetery. But we pull into the cemetery and we're driving in. There's people lined up along the way. The first one we come to is this Victor.
Oh.
He's all dressed in a suit and everything, and we come by and he goes.
Yeah, people were on the sidewalk and stopped and watched you guys go by.
That was cool. That was cool.
That was cool.
That was cool.
That was cool.
Yeah.
Did anyone-
But the other cool part of it is that once we got in the cemetery and they got the casket above the hole and everything like that, Chris comes up and he had taken the Kenworth emblem off of the last truck that Dad had bought and put double stick tape on the end of it and put it on the end of the coffin.
Oh, I remember that.
So it was like he was driving the Kenworth into the hereafter.
I don't remember that either. That That's cool.
That was very cool.
I do, because I had to buy another emblem. Or usually they would tell us.
Service and the, you know, with the open coffin and stuff, and so everybody leaves, and then either somebody came out, or the next day, I think maybe somebody came out with this plastic bag with a piece of white fabric inside of it, and goes, you know, did anybody leave this? And I looked at it and I recognized it as Dad's underwear. And Margie goes, "That's mine!" Something, and I went out there with you and you had it there idling. And the sound of that diesel rumbling and the smell of the diesel just was, you know, my entire childhood. No, it was really strong. It was just this kind of, and it was like, there's peace in the world hearing that rumble.
It was the story that, for me, most typified our father. We were building new sideboards for one of the trailers, because every once in a while we would replace all those sideboards. So we'd build new ones out of wood, screw every one of them in. And something happened, and I don't remember what happened, but I remember we were standing at the back end of the trailer, standing down on the ground. We'd gotten down from where we were standing on the ground, and something happened, I think, with the winch. And I think it was his thumb or his index finger, I think it was his index finger, got hit, and it broke it. It put it out of place, because it was curved like this. And he stood there, he just went, I mean, he didn't holler, but he just yanked on his finger and yanked it back into place.
That's
Well,
in true of a spirit.
Ever forgotten that.
Well, he had another one very similar to that. Very similar. I can't believe, I don't remember hearing this one. But he had bought new planks for the beds. And
I was there when that happened.
will you tell the story then?
Oh, well, see, that would have been much later.
Yeah.
Because this, the one I'm talking about, happened between the house and the old shop. Because we were still using the old shop. The new shop hadn't been built yet. So the trailer was parked right there in between. I remember that distinctly.
No, he was
Go ahead.
stacking when he smashed his thumb in it. And he smashed
No,
it.
then he was putting stickers in it for it to air dry, and the forklift moved, and this whole
Dropped
load of lumber dropped on his thumb or another finger.
thumb.
Yeah. And then what?
He didn't want to go to the doctor. His bone was sticking out of his thumb.
Didn't he pull it out of there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And did he go?
Yeah, he finally went. They had to put stitches on both sides of it. But he was like nothing happened.
I
I
wonder
was
if
gonna
it's the
bleed
same
to death.
thumb he almost cut off at our house.
Oh, I remember that story.
Yeah, because we were using a
Oh,
steel band, the kind that, we were wrapping it around the bottom of a 4x4 that would hold, roof up.
A strap, it was
Yeah.
has a lot of holes
steel
in it.
strap, yeah.
Whatever you call that.
Plumber strap, yeah.
And what was he doing? He was pulling on it or something. Anyway, it cut right through his thumb, kind of diagonal. Didn't go through the bone, but it just laid his whole thumb out. And he wouldn't go to the hospital or a doctor or anything, but the following day, I think it was, couldn't stand it anymore, and it got infected. So we finally had to take him to the emergency room.
Must have had hundreds of little heart attacks in the past years for your heart to have this much damage. He said, well, every once in a while, in the middle of the night, I'd go outside. I remember him going outside and walking around all the time when I was a kid.
Yeah, he'd do chin-ups on the...
Yeah, he'd go to the side of the pickup.
Yeah.
He was having heart attacks all the time.
Well, there was one time when I was there, Mom had died
But they weren't real bad, I
Yeah.
don't think. But
And
already, and he wakes, well, I don't know if he woke me up or I was watching TV or something. He says, "You gotta take me into the hospital, I'm having these chest pains." I said, "Okay." So I took him into the hospital in Dos Palace, was nothing. You know, he'd go, and they check him out and everything. And I don't think it's a heart attack. And they take an X-ray because it's this high technology is they have there, and they're, you know, running all the tests they can on him and everything, and they need him to go somewhere else, and so he walks through the hall where I am and lets out this huge fart. And he goes, I feel a lot better now.
Okay, let's go home.
Clifford, let's go home.
Maybe she was having a kid, I don't know. And I don't remember who told this story, whether it was mom or somebody else, but anyway, she was having some pain in the bed, and Pimentel leaned over to her and said, have you passed gas? And my mother looked at him kind of quizzically, I guess, and so he said again, have you passed gas? And she didn't know what he was talking about.
Yeah.
So then he kind of leaned over further and whispered into her ear, have you farted?
Before I even met Phil's dad, he told me that his hands were so big that you could drop a quarter through his wedding ring. And I didn't believe it. And then, so as soon as I met Phil's dad, I asked. And he took his ring off and he dropped a quarter through it, and it probably could have handled a 50-cent piece. You guys had some kind of a little scooter thingy that had 3 wheels.
Yeah.
Wide wheels on the back and one in the front, and we were riding it around on the lawn in front of the house, doing, you
That
know,
was a
Swerving?
go-kart, actually.
yeah, go-kart,
Yeah.
yeah. And anyway, it was hot, and you had the sprinkler going, and Ed was out there sitting on the front porch in his skivvies.
Okay.
But then he realized that I wasn't part of the family, and he got extremely embarrassed. You know, it was just like a bathing suit, so it was no big deal, but he was just about dying of embarrassment, and he made us, I think, made Dorothy go get a towel or something to put around him.
He bought it, it was a cop
The
car, a
three-wheeler.
parking meter
Oh, yeah.
made or something, and he took the body off of it, and he built just the seat and then a bench on the back, so you just sit on the back, so it's a 3-wheel Cushman.
No, that wasn't the Cushman. The Cushman came way before.
That's what I'm talking about.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Because the Cushman was a 3-wheeler also that had a box on the back. It was rigged, a metal box that you could haul things around on.
Yeah, well, I thought it was a parking meter.
No, not the Cushman, not the first one.
Yeah.
You know,
Because the first one I think was gone by the time you guys
the,
became of age.
No, that's the one I remember. It was red, and he took the box off and he built a bench
the girl's brother is
instead of the box, so we could ride on it.
not just 7, it's 16.
Well, I don't know, I used the one with a box to deliver newspapers, and we rode around as kids all over the place. But I don't know what, I mean, maybe after I left, he did something with it.
No, because it was still in the old house.
Because I thought it was gone already when I was in high school. I don't remember ever seeing it while I was in high school.
Okay, I have
Well,
another
it was gone by
story.
then, yeah.
You guys are just arguing. I have another story about Ed. He was, I don't know where he was, but driving somewhere, and he saw this
It's a,
round rock that was what, 8
Oh,
feet high or something?
at least.
And it said, "Do not move." So he picked it up on his truck and he moved it back and he put it right in front of the shop.
I think it's still there, is it?
And-
Yes.
And it says, "Do not move." That was hilarious.
To correct you, because the scooter, we were still in the old house, and Tony and Lucy gave me a calf because I loved the dairy and I loved cows. And I kept it in that old shed where the gas tanks are next to the new shop now. There was an old piece of shit shed there that the
Oh, it's
Model
still
T
there?
was actually in. No, that shed's not there. That's the old barn.
Oh, there's
Yeah.
another shed
so
there.
where the gas tanks are. And so I would, go out and feed that calf every morning in the winter, and then when it got big, they gave it to Joe Pimentel. And so on that scooter, I was probably 10 or 12 or something, and I drove it on the back roads, on the canals and stuff, and went to visit my cow. In it. End of scooter story.
How many of these?
The only time
All of those?
Yeah, I think so.
that I remember that my father ever struck me, ever hit me. He may have hit me at other times, but I don't remember them at all. The one time I do remember was he got so angry at me because I was teasing Jackie, and it just overflowed everywhere. He took me out into the breezeway of the new house, and I was probably 15, 16, something like that. And he grabbed me by my right ear with his left hand. And he had me by the ear, and he started swinging me around in a circle and hitting me with his other hand. And as I recall, of course at that time I probably only weighed 140 pounds, but he hit me several times in the head while he was swinging me around, and I believe my feet were up off the ground.
I'm surprised your ear didn't come off.
Another story, and we all had this experience of him forcing us to drive, regardless if we were ready to drive or not.
Or if it was Christmas or
Because
not.
I remember one time driving the truck up Henry Miller Road, one of those roads that tee into the 152. And I had driven it from wherever we were loading hay or loading equipment or something, and we got up to the 152, and I stopped the truck, started to get out, because in previous times I would get out and he would slide over and drive on the highway. But this time he said, "Oh no, just go ahead." So I don't know how old I was, but I didn't have a driver's license, and I got a driver's license when I was 13. So I had to be, 12 years old, and he said, "Just go ahead, drive it down the road." So I drove it down to 152 and took it home. But that was his, he did that with all of us. He forced us to drive very early on.
Another thing, while we were talking about his hands, if this has to be passed down through history, and nobody mentioned this, he was missing this finger.
From the milk separator.
That when he was,
A teenager,
yeah,
or preteen, I don't know.
they had these things on dairies that would separate the milk from the cream. And so it was this crank like this, and there were gears around there that would make this thing spin around and spin the cream.
In a big tank, yeah.
And so he was running that thing, caught his finger in that, and cut the whole thing off. And
Well, I don't know if he cut it off, but once they went to wherever they went to take care of it, they thought it made more sense just to lose it.
Yeah.
So.
But his hands were so massive that nobody ever noticed that he was missing that finger, because it was just all filled in by the width of the other
Well,
fingers.
And then, no, when they removed the finger, they tied these two
Oh,
together.
did they?
Yeah,
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
tied these two together to hide the space.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But the result was the other two fingers, he couldn't move.
right. They were bit.
Permanently curled over like.
Famous for in the San Joaquin Valley, I've told this story a million times, when he was, well, his story was that every birthday when he was living with his parents, he would get another cow to milk. So when he turned 16, he was milking 16 cows. This is by hand, in those days. And he left home and he bought his own milk truck. And I don't know what kind of truck it was, but there were,
I think it was a Chevy.
so the milk cans were, 10 gallons. So water, they would be 80 pounds, but with milk, they were probably closer to 100 pounds each. So the first tier probably came up to about waist high or something, and then the second tier was probably overhead. So he was famous in the valley because he would come walking out of the dairy barns with one of those 100-pound cans in each hand and walk up to his truck and throw them onto the top deck.
One-handed.
One in each hand,
Yeah.
100 pounds.
That the Lopez, Manuel Lopez ever had a dairy.
Well, his stories were that during the Depression, they would get kicked off of the dairy that they were on because they didn't pay the rent. And then that hoof and mouth disease came through, and they would herd the cows down the road in front of the Model T. But there were these stations that they had to go through, that the cows had to walk through some chemical to kill the hoof and mouth disease, and they would move on to the next dairy down the road, and another Portuguese family that hadn't paid the rent somewhere else would take over the dairy that they were on.
Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but
Pretty good, huh?
up until
Pretty
a
good.
fairly
Well,
advanced age,
No,
Ed
it's
Lopez
through the
didn't
state
have any
experiments.
fillings in his head.
Okay.
Never went to the dentist.
Is that true?
But
Yeah.
the art
never went to the dentist?
is
No.
probably pretty good.
That's quite incredible. And I don't know about his back
But don't,
teeth,
aren't you
but
eligible
his
for a
front
state
teeth
retirement system?
looked
Well,
quite
I am,
healthy.
but I
They
haven't
were
worked
quite
there for
white
10
and
years.
quite
In
straight.
California, you have to work for 10 years to get any
Yeah.
benefits.
Well,
from the state.
part of that-
So,
Yeah,
yeah,
part of that
pay for
Depression
all your
story,
stuff, I
though,
think food
is
expensive.
they lived on the farm, and so everybody else didn't have any food, but they had food. And his story was that for lunch,
Ours was
they would
probably
have
pretty good.
That's what I was thinking.
soup the late,
Yeah.
and for dinner they'd have late the soup, which would translates as milk and bread for lunch and bread and milk for dinner. And the earliest memory I have
Yeah,
of Dad is we probably didn't have a TV, but we'd sit around in the evening. Maybe we had a TV because it was in that porch, and he would sit in a chair and I would sit in his lap, and he'd put his hands around me like this. And so after about 15 minutes, he would probably fall asleep or something. But
Caught.
I'd be choking, you know, and I'd try and get out of this trap, and it was almost impossible to get out of the trap. But the other thing I was thinking about, do you remember doing anything father-son stuff with him? I mean, I never played catch with him.
I used to play catch with him.
Yeah,
But he was only good for about 10 minutes because he'd be so tired when he got home, and I would make him play. And I think of that now when I come home and Joe wants to play catch. Man, and my dad was and my dad was 5 years older than me when I was Joe's age.
uh-huh.
And what he must have felt like, and he always did. Not for a long time, but but I do remember going to a Giants game when I played Little League. Everybody on the bus commented me on they'd never seen my dad clean before. He had a long sleeve white shirt on, and everybody said, "No, I didn't even know what your dad looked like when he wasn't all dirty because they'd always seen him all greasy."
Yeah.
And on the way home, the bus got a flat tire. And him and Junior Maxwell jump out of the bus, change the tire, and he walks in and he looked just like he did every day.
That's a good story.
Yeah, that's a good story. I wasn't very old. I must have been 7 or 8, because we still lived in the house the old house, and the garage, the old garage, was a diesel shop, because in the 50s, my dad and Clarence Dunnigan went into business together, and they opened what was called the Dunlow Truck Shop.
Very good.
And it was in that old garage.
Yeah. Shop.
And
Old shop.
the old shop. And one day, Dad, it was late in the afternoon or early in the evening. Everybody was just kind of sitting around chatting. Dad was standing outside the door of the shop, leaning against a couple of truck tires, and he had somebody in his arms. I don't know if it was you, some baby. I don't know who it was, but he was talking and carrying on and holding the baby, and there was a piece of chain there, and so I took the chain and I wrapped it around his ankles.
Yeah.
and kind of held both sides of the chain, and I jerked on it. And it jerked his feet out from under him, and he fell flat on his ass, with it, holding whoever it was he was holding. But he was angry as hell.
Oh, I don't blame
But
him.
he didn't.
I wonder why.
He didn't. He didn't hit me. He didn't hit me. But he was angry at me.
I don't think he ever hit me. I don't remember hitting me. He'd get pissed off at me. You know, if he called me down to the shop to help him, and I'd be watching TV or something.
He
Pissed
hated
off,
that.
so, yeah,
He
yeah.
hated that.
But, you know, as I was saying, I don't remember ever doing any activity with him other than helping him in the shop or sweeping the shop floor. Or we went duck hunting one time, but, you know, we went out there, it was totally foggy, we couldn't see anything, and so, you know, by the time it was clear, it was daylight and the ducks were all high and everything, and we pulled out of there and the game warden stopped us. We were out by El Nido somewhere. And I don't even think we went pheasant hunting together. I would go pheasant hunting by myself. But I don't remember any other activities that we did together.
Yeah. I don't remember any.
Well, he was all about work though.
That's interesting.
Well, but going in the truck with him I went in the truck with him all the time.
Thank
I don't even think I did that.
Yeah, see, I didn't because when I was growing up, he wasn't driving. He had drivers.
Well, he had drivers then too, but he was in the truck every day.
Yeah, no.
And
he
what
was-
I really remember doing with him a lot in the summertime was we'd go to Fresno every day to hunt.
I remember that. I'd go to Fresno with him.
And he would stop at
I'm not
Avenue
done.
9
Interfering.
in the afternoon and take a nap. And I was probably
Please go in that
5 or
car.
6 years old.
Yeah.
And I would get out on the side of the freeway and play on the side of the freeway while he took a nap for, 20 or 30 minutes and then he'd take off again.
No, I would go to Fresno with him too, and he had a favorite restaurant.
Eagle's Cafe.
Eagle Cafe, yes.
We just talked
Eagle
about
Cafe.
The sign is still there.
Is it really?
And I remember because when it lit up, it had an eagle and the wings flapped.
Oh,
I don't
I
remember
want
that.
that sign so bad.
Oh, yeah.
Eagle Cafe, and he used to order hot
Hot beef sandwich.
beef sandwich.
That's what I was.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, hot beef sandwich. That's what he used to.
Yeah.
That's what he used to order.
Yeah, it was the diner. It had orange, big tuck roll boots and stuff on it. And Mom always liked the dishwasher because he would pluck his eyebrows.
Yeah, I remember that guy. I do remember that guy. Yeah.
He was probably the first gay guy
Yeah,
that I
ever
was
around.
ever exposed to, but I had no idea
Yeah.
other than he
She
plucked
liked
his
him or
eyebrows.
she didn't like him?
He plucked his eyebrows.
But did she like him
Well,
or not like him?
I don't know if she liked him or disliked him, but she definitely noticed
It was unusual. It was unique.
Yeah.
But getting back to the issue of
The restaurant.
participating with him, I didn't either. But he would expect us, he would expect me, and I think it was true of everybody else, that when he needed help, he wanted somebody there right now. God damn it. And watching TV in the middle of the day was the equivalent of sacrilege. I mean, that was just as if you were
Lazy.
the worst person in the world to watch TV. And when I was in high school, every summer, it was my job to go out and load the hay, because we'd go out at 5 or 5:30 in the morning early. We would load a truck or two of hay. Bill Hutton and whoever else was driving would drive the hay over to San Jose. They'd come back. Next morning, we'd do the same damn thing. So he would get me up in the morning at 4:30, 5:30, whatever it was. Get your ass out of bed, let's go load hay. And that's what we did. All summer. And
And another thing was trying to sleep late in the morning.
Oh yeah,
He didn't go for that at all. When he got up, everybody got up. And there was
Philip, that's
there
you.
was no two ways
I
about
remember
it.
seeing that in your house when
Nobody
your boys
slept-
were little.
Nobody slept in.
Philip was out.
How did he wake you up?
My
glass of
dad
water?
did the same thing. Their
Yeah.
bedroom was in
Well, he never
the
did that to me.
hall.
Oh, he did that to
So
me
you walk
many
down the
times.
hall,
He
right
would
in
throw
the
a
door.
boot at
Oh,
me.
Madam.
Honestly, yeah, I did some.
Yeah. We'll pull the covers off.
At
Yeah.
your house.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
You do that to
We
us
got
all
married
the
and
time.
him doing that.
Well,
I
come
bet
on.
those kids are pissed off.
Dad used to go and get parts at least 4 days a week in Fresno, because that was the only truck parts place around at the time. All the truck parts places were in Fresno. And it was just him and Optimus, the dog, all the time. Never, every once in a while I'd go with him during the summer, but 95% of the time it was just Dad and the dog. And he'd go. And one day my mom wanted to go to Fresno because she had some shopping to do. So he picked her up, dropped her off at the Fulton Mall. Then he went out to the other side of town to the truck places, got all the parts he needed to get, drove straight back to Dos Palace and forgot about her.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
My mother called him from Fresno.
Oh, I bet she was pissed.
She was so pissed. She got a taxi to take her home. And I remember her walking in the house and Dad was laying on the couch and she said, "Get outside and pay the man."
Always have to go to Fresno for school shopping. And go to Long's Drugs.
Oh, yeah.
On the mower.
Yeah, it was before the mall when we went.
Oh,
The
that's
mall wasn't
Fulton
even
Mall.
there yet. And then Dad would always go to the Firestone dealer.
Aces the place.
Aces Hardware.
No,
Very
no,
good.
no, 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 no. It was the Firestone dealer. It was John Pashane's place.
No, that was the Michelin dealer.
Pardon
No,
me?
it was John Pashane. It was
Well,
Ace.
I don't know which dealer it was, but it was John Pashane because
Yeah.
that's where we always bought tires.
Yeah, and you could buy a waffle iron,
Oh,
a
yeah.
mixer.
But that was,
And a baseball glove.
And a
My
baseball
first
glove.
baseball glove
Yeah.
came from there.
but
Yeah.
Somebody's phone
Pashan
is
owned
ringing.
Michelin.
Yeah.
I don't know. I
He
don't
didn't
know.
own Ace.
I don't know what he.
But he used to go to Ace
Your
all the
phone.
time
Yeah.
to get tire patches
Yeah.
and stuff.
Well, let it go. We're talking here. And so, and he'd always go there. And when we'd go to Fresno, he'd go there, and Mom would tell him to go there and get some money. So he'd go there and ask him for money, and they'd give him money. And I always thought, these guys just give Dad money. But, they would put it on his bill, or he'd write a check or something, obviously. But it was just this, that he would get money there. And so one time we're there school shopping, and with Dad, it was all of us and Dad, and we go there, and we're shopping, and Dad disappears. So we're ready to go home. No Dad. We wait, I don't know how long, I was a little kid, but Mom calls the cops because we can't find Dad. We're out in front of Long's, it's cold, it's dark, and he finally shows up, and where are you? And so after some dialogue, figured out